In this daily drop, I'm going to talk about budgeting projects, breaking points, and holding your ground. So let's go. All right, everybody, here we are with another episode of the Daily Drop. And one of the things that I love about doing a daily series is I get to talk about things as I'm actually doing them. So instead of something happening and then I get to talk about it 2, 3, 4 weeks after it happened, I get to talk about it now as it's going on. And one of the things that's happening for me right now, which is not a bad thing, is I'm starting to push out more proposals and budgets to clients, potential clients, so on and so forth. Now, that's a great thing. But one of the things that I've been noticing, especially this year, is just how budget conscious everybody is. Now, that goes in waves. It doesn't mean that you charge a lot more to a client because people aren't budget conscious, and less to a client base because they're more budget conscious. There are, there's rates. There's places that we have to be when it comes to crewing a job and what the costs are for a job and making a profit. And I've done an episode where I shared a budgeting template that you can use to start to figure things out. And everybody's market is a little bit different. And I'm also sensitive to the fact that the type of work that you do may price you at a different range. You're not going to do a budget for a national commercial the same way you would do a budget for a smaller client who wants to push something out to the web. You get the idea. All right. So one of the things that I'm encountering right now is just the reality of we need to accomplish this with a particular project, but that's the proposal, that's the budget. No. We need to be way, way below that in order to pull this off. So the thing that I want to say about that is that for me personally, and everybody's going to have their own way of doing business, when I'm breaking down pre-production, production, post-production, equipment, expenses, things like that, there are amounts, there are rates attached to those things. And the one thing that I would say to you is when you are figuring out how you can make a project cost less for a client, the approach in my mind, for me, it's not even in my mind, in practice, is not to just say, well, okay, you need to be at this amount. We'll just take that percentage off so we can get to that number. That's never going to work, because what you're doing is you are underselling yourself, and you're saying, I was overcharging you to begin with. And that's not the reality of running a business. What you have to do is say, if I'm charging $500 a day for this particular crew person, or $600 or $750 or whatever the rate is going to be, we either have to remove that crew person and figure out a way to get some more time with a smaller crew to get to where you need to be, or figure out a different approach. So it's not about taking a percentage off of a project. It's about figuring out what is it that you're trying to do? How much time do you have to do it? Sometimes it's less people with a little bit more time, but there may be some savings there for the client. Sometimes it's more people in less amount of time, and the numbers might work out. There's so many variables there, but what I'm trying to say is don't just take an amount off. What you have to do is you have to figure out, based on the amount of people that are needed for a project, how much time to get there, especially from a production standpoint, which very oftentimes is the biggest line item inside of a budget. You have to figure out where the breaking point is. And what breaking point means is you get to a place inside of your budget for a particular type of project where if you go below that number, you're essentially not only going to be not able to afford to do what you need to do to deliver to that client, but you're going to get to that point where if you go below that number, there's going to be resentment. It's going to be, I'm doing this because I'm desperate for work and I have to get this job. That never works, by the way. And I will tell you that if you get to a breaking point and go below that, then it's never going to be a good long-term solution. I've never in my life lowered a rate for a particular client and ever gotten back to an original rate. So what you have to do is you have to do for yourself what I do, which is say, I am willing to go to a particular place by changing the parameters of the project and try to get to a number that will work for the client. But I'm not willing to compromise the quality of what it is I'm producing for that client. And generally, that will help you figure out where the breaking point is. And you have to make a profit. For me, that's a production company fee, and that may range depending on the type of project that I'm doing. It's usually 15 to 25% of the project. It doesn't include producer director fees and things like production insurance fees. So that gets taken off of the total and then the percentage gets added. But it is important that you're also making a profit as a company. You have to reinvest in your company. You also have to be able to survive. So if you're only putting yourself into a project, if you're producing it as a day player and there's no profit there, how are you going to have a sustainable company? So those are just the thoughts that I have right now. Don't compromise your breaking point. Don't undersell yourself. And make sure you're getting enough so that you're not out of pocket for standard expenses and things like that. I hope that all makes sense. I'll link to that other budget template episode. Feel free to put comments, ask questions. Don't forget to. And I'll see you on the next episode of The Daily Drop.